all set?
I'm here.
All right, it is 4:30, and I will call to order the Oversight and Finance Committee meeting. Michelle, could we have roll call, please?
Levy,
Here.
Delgado,
Here.
and I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank.
Should be Stephanie, right?
Yeah,
Correct.
Jacobs. I don't see her as here. Jacobs?
I don't see her either.
Okay, and then we have Larson as Larson
I'm here.
as ex officio.
Thank you, Michelle.
You're welcome.
We could have an approval of the agenda.
I move approval of the agenda.
I second that.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you. Next, could we have an approval of the minutes for the May 12th, 2020 meeting?
I move approval of the minutes for May 12th, 2020.
Second that.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I second.
All in favor, please state aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. All right, next we will receive our financial reports. Ms. Lapointe, are you all set?
Yeah, let me share that screen.
Thank you.
Okay, can everybody see that now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so here's a look overall at the revenues and expenses for April. As you can see, April is not a high revenue month. We don't get a lot of aids in April. As far as the revenues with no grants, we are slightly down for this point last year, from 59 now to 63% last year. This is likely due to the interest allocation entry, where we take the interest earned and allocate that from Fund 10 to the other sub-accounts, such as the activity accounts, Fund 50. But overall, nothing significant in April and basically on trend. As far as the expenses, again, as the same point at point in time last year, we're slightly down. However, not all of our expenses have been recognized at this point in April. The buildings are not spending quite as much since the closure in March. And Joanne will go into more detail in the next section when she presents on COVID. But again, on trend for the situation that we're under. Revenues from grants, we are slightly higher. And this is all due or very reliant on the timing of claims, but then there's no significant concerns for revenues and grants. And then on the expense side, we are very close to this time last year, within, about 1%. And we're seeing realistic trends within our groups here, so nothing significant as well. That is it. Any questions?
Thank you so much. This is Amy. I do have a question. When our books close June 30th of this year, at the July meeting, will you do a presentation? Because I'm sure, I won't say I know, that most people, when they look at that top level page that gives the overview, when you see 5.7 million in parentheses, that large of a number in a parentheses meaning negative is shocking. Will there be some type of summary or overlook of, yes, it's completely normal to have this level of net change in May, but the way we stay afloat is it's made up for in these months, and these are the historical trends. Will there be some type of overview?
Yeah, and keep in mind that when you see that negative number, that's not a reflection on our bank account.
Right.
I have not been through a year end. Joanne, can you give a little bit more explanation of the process and when they're going to see these numbers?
Absolutely. We will do a budget recap on where we ended the year. It will most likely not be at the beginning, or even we'll be able to start giving you a look of our output at the end of July. But keep in mind, we post expenses with a June 30 date that are still coming in as we get invoices in June. For things we purchased in June that we receive invoicing and things for July. If we receive those goods, we are still able to post those back to our fiscal year of June 30th. So usually July is kind of our transition where we start working in both years. And then the audit and everything will be taking place. We'll close out our books, reconcile all of our payrolls, and we will definitely be presenting. Typically, I kind of do that overview the very beginning of August, where we're looking at where June actually ended, because we have to reconcile the health insurance accounts because we are self-funded, and we don't receive many of our aid payments that are posted to FY 1920. We don't receive those from the state until late July. And those are required to be posted back to a June 30. So there's a lot of influx that still happens in July. And those negative amounts, when you're looking at that summary sheet, it is important to remember as well, that is just a month total. That is not cumulative through the entire year. This is just representing an August look of what we received in revenue in the month of August and what we expended in the month of August in each of our funds.
Perfect. So we can expect that overview in August?
Yes.
And then you also mentioned an audit. Is that internal or external?
We conduct an external audit every year. They are actually coming next week. And I say coming, they said there may be here on site one day and then remote the other 2 days, where they start gathering our preliminary looks to see where we are prior to the actual end of the year, so that they can formulate their test pattern and audit for when they come out. I believe, Wendy, do you have the dates of the final audit?
I believe in the first week of August. I don't remember off the top of my head.
Okay, but yes, it is external, and we are required, every governmental agency has to have an external audit, but because of the significant dollars that we receive in federal funding, we also have to do that site level audit as well. So they are testing our federal funded programs every year externally, as well as the district overall financials.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Are there other questions?
I'm good, thank you.
All right. Is there a motion to approve the 2020 financial report and move this on to the full board?
Make a motion to approve the the financial report
For April 2020,
for April 2020
and to move that onto the full board.
and to move that onto the full.
Thank you so much. Is there a second?
I second.
Perfect. Is there any discussion? Right, all in favor, please state aye. Aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Okay, thank you. Next, we'll have a financial update on COVID-19 from Ms. Armstrong.
Okay, I am going to present what is a working document. I want to make sure that that's clear because this document is keeping track of some expenses we've incurred, but also many of our projections. Because those invoices have not been received or not reflected in our Skyward expenses at this point, it was impossible at this point to give you kind of a realistic view. So some of these can come in a little higher, a little less. These are anticipated. So it is a working document, and I will flow through and show you how we are looking at those expenses. So wanted to have that caveat. Yeah, here we go. Okay, so can everyone see this spreadsheet labeled with expenditures and savings at the top?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so what we have done, we are identifying some of the expenses. We're coding them with a specific project code within our system so that we can track expenses as they're incurred and also kind of highlight what is new versus what is some savings that we may recognize. In preparation, when we started getting close to hearing that closures might happen and new guidelines were coming out in recommendations, we had gone ahead and ordered many, like 5 pallets of hand soap, paper towels, and toilet paper, because as everybody remembers, back in March, there was a run on all of these things. And so we had those 5 pallets ordered so that we would have significant stock if necessary for our students to be in our buildings and be able to do proper cleaning. Of course, those are here at our Madison Road storage site so that when schools do reopen, we will have adequate supplies of hand soap and toilet paper. So we won't be at a shortage. We are planning to stock everything as if we're coming back with, significant requirements on cleaning. Many of you have heard of our extensive use of the Clorox 360 machines, which is an atomizer that does our disinfecting and cleaning of our buildings. That is a airborne electrostatic cleaning. So we bought 3 or 4 of those machines at this point, which cost us $39,270. So those are things that we have received, and it enables Airmark and our facility crew to come in. When we were still coming in this building and having board meetings, we wanted to make sure we were sanitizing it for everyone. We have done these in the buildings as well as we let people come into the building at the first time to kind of get the iPads together for staff. We continue to use these 360s to disinfect those buildings and those areas. Definitely, it is something that the city has even asked us to borrow. We can use them on our buses to sanitize. So this is definitely an investment that we have, and we would like to get one for every building. So that is something that we will be having the orders put in for those they're just back ordered right now to try to get some more of those machines so that when schools do open, we have the capacity. This is also something that we will use every flu season. As soon as Michelle Babelius lets us know that flu season is hot and Heidi, we will go through the buildings and use this 360 as part of our cleaning regimen to try to contain the spread of any type of virus in our buildings during those seasons. So this is not something that once COVID is done, we will never use again. It will be put into our normal practice of disinfecting and cleaning. We had to change building codes on the alarm system twice as we locked our buildings down. We needed to make sure that that kept our buildings secure and not allowing people in and out of the building. At this point, we have ordered face masks. We continue to prepare for schools opening. You'll see that as of today or yesterday, we had 4,000 masks on hand. I want to express those are just adult size masks. If we have to look at other options, we would have to look at student size masks and things of that nature. So these are just things that we have done going forward. We've had increases in printing and postage so that we could mail packets home. Building supplies, we have bought specific things that were related to distance learning and PBIS to try to encourage our students. We are continuing to pay the crossing guards for our meal service, but this $10,000 does not include what we would normally pay our crossing guards because we committed to pay all of our employees to keep them whole. This is the extra service. Most of our crossing guards only typically work 2 hours a day during the school year. They have had, for all our elementary sites that are serving meals to protect the safety of our families and students that are crossing those streets, we have been paying them to cover that lunch period, which we serve from 11 to 1. And we have them come a half hour before and stay a half hour after so that we know. So we're paying for an additional hour, at least a day, at all 6 elementary sites to have a crossing guard available. One of our exciting points I want to mention is we put outdoor access points out at our buildings, and those were actually installed yesterday and are going live probably right this moment. They were promised to be activated by end of day today, and this will allow Wi-Fi access to the majority of the building's property at every school and the Colac Education Center. So we had earlier boosted our signal in hopes that we would get these outdoor access points that would make service more reliable. Those were delayed as everybody tried to get those in. They arrived Friday and we had them installed. TC Networks installed those, had all the wiring, so as soon as they arrived, we were able to install those. We have not paid that invoice yet, but that is this $12,331 that we are anticipating will be coming through as those were installed just today. And that will provide free access in our parking lots and outside of our buildings from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. Sunday through Saturday. And it will be on our network, which enables the same filtering that we have on our student devices. So we are able to control that filter, that the network will not be jeopardized. It's still going through all of our firewalls and filtering to promote safe use. And there will be an access screen. They will not need a password during those hours to get onto that guest network. And I really do think that's a positive, especially in the summer, that maybe people can go and sit on the playground or sit on the curbs, do some summer learning, if they have to get in their car, but it would give that opportunity to everyone to at least be able to get outside and do some of that distance learning or participation. We've had some increase in technology repairs with our iPads and going home with students, and some repairs that needed to be done to MacBooks. Tonight at the board meeting, I know we're we're putting on to approve the refresh of staff devices, and that will help with these MacBook repairs as our MacBooks are completely out of date. Meals, I put this on here. This is what we have spent in our meals service. Now, a lot of these costs could become funding. We know that the meals will be reimbursed as part of our school lunch program. We were happy to get that information, but I wanted to show a cost. Many of these costs could be reimbursed. We could get funding from the CARES Act and using some of our title funds. There are options to have these things go through those processes and those funding sources. However, the federal government has not released those funds at this point. So we've gotten allocations, but we have not seen any of the money, and there is not a given date of when we will see that money. So I want to make sure that some of these can be reimbursed or fall under that category. But it is not guaranteed. So this is giving you that snapshot of what we've spent and anticipated spending right now. On the other side of this, here's our savings. We are saving on our garbage pickup, of course, because we have taken them off the daily schedule. They are only being picked up as needed. We did reinstate the service while the teachers are in the buildings cleaning up this week. We are anticipating about $68,000 in savings in heating and air conditioning costs as we put our buildings into unoccupied mode. These are compared to March, April, and May of last year's expenditures for heating and air conditioning. And of course, our substitute costs. We have not, of course, had to have substitutes in our building, and we are spending approximately $85,000 a month on substitutes. So we are anticipating a savings of about $250,000 in sub costs due to the school closure. As you can see, our savings is nice at $322,000 anticipated at this point. And our expenditures are about $477,000, of which we know those meals will be reimbursed as we've already gotten approval from that. So as you can see, this continues to grow, and this is just kind of our working document. I guess I would take any questions at this point.
Joanne, thank you. This is really helpful. I have a couple questions. With the face mask, are those disposable or reusable masks?
These are all the disposable masks, as we would be having to look to see. Right now, recommendations are not to use the cloth masks unless you can guarantee that they are going to be washed every day. And this does not include the masks that were provided as a gift to all staff members by the district.
Okay, so are these masks like in anticipation of us being back in buildings this year just to get us started? Is this for like ABM staff that are in our buildings cleaning?
No, these would be, these are the district staff. So this is anticipation. We make them available like the last week and this week. We are making them available to all of the teachers and staff that are coming in to clean rooms. These are when we have to do student device and belonging pickups and distribution. We make them available. So anyone coming into our building, much like the board meeting, I'm making sure that there's a box available so people can use them. They are not being used by Airmark staff at any point. We did provide 2 boxes to Durham when they were helping with our food service distribution at the sites so that they would be protected while they did that service for the district.
Perfect. And then my last question, well, my comment and question is that I'm really excited about the outdoor access points. I think that's going to be a wonderful resource for students and families. Has any communication been given to Beloit Police Department I just don't want anyone harassed or kind of approached for loitering, etc. That we have these new outdoor access points. This is the expectation that families will be using them. And then my additional question to go along with that, are our playgrounds still closed or are those now open?
Yep. All of the school district buildings, grounds, and facilities are closed. So that does include the playgrounds. As far as they should not be a gathering spot. We have made it clear, we posted that they were closed due to the governor's order. We do see that people are still using them, and we are not going to necessarily police that using it. We have told the security Todd Endel to notify police whenever we're in our buildings, like we're having the gatherings now. Now that I know the access points are going to be active tonight, that communication will go out as well, that people can be in those parking lots. We're not going to encourage that gathering of people. And when I say they can sit outside on the playground, I guess that's probably something I shouldn't have spoken in that manner, but I'm thinking more of like a picnic on a little blanket or something, so people could be a little more comfortable than just sitting in their car, maybe on the curb, just trying to, not necessarily using the playground as a playground.
No, I get it. It's a complicated situation. Kyle, please correct me if I'm overstepping. But Monica, could you, I'm assuming you are at some point are going to do publicity about the outdoor access points. Could you just kind of provide some structure and clarity so families know these are here for you to use, but playgrounds are still closed at least until June 30th. So we are as clear as possible when we are opening up this resource to students and families.
Yes, and I would say our superintendent, Sue Green, and I are on this. So thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Perfect. Thank you. Are there any other questions for Joanne?
I have a question on the outdoor access points. Joanne, you mentioned that they will be able to access any of the school sites. Is it only through the school tablets that they have, or can they like use their own personal equipment as long as they log into any of the school sites?
Oh, yeah, for clarification, they can use any device they want. The Wi-Fi is open to any Wi-Fi accessible device, and they can go to any site. I mean, they can go to Google, they can go to YouTube. What I was implying is they're going to be filtered with the same requirements of what a student has, which means they're not going to be able to access pornographic, mature, obscene, those types of sites are going to be blocked, which also includes a lot of social media sites, because we don't allow our students onto social media sites on the district campus. So they're going to have the same filtering, but it's not limited to just going to the school district of Beloit's site. It's just running through our network on the filters and firewalls that the district has.
Thank you for that clarification.
Okay.
Are there any other questions?
I'm fine.
No, thank you so much, Joanne, for this presentation and putting this together as an update. I appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity and the explanation that this is a work in progress.
All right, perfect. Again, thank you. This was very helpful. Are there any other future agenda items?
I do have one. One suggestion is you kind of hinted at it earlier, Amy, is that perhaps and maybe it's not necessarily a meeting, but maybe like a workshop for the Oversight Committee as to helping to understand like what to look for in those financial statements every month, so that we can you kind of learn how to read them a little bit better and understand them.
Thanks, Kyle. I think that's a great idea. I'll go ahead and get that submitted on our Google form for future agenda items. Anything else? All right, our next meeting date will be Tuesday, July 14th, 2020, and we'll post that time as we get closer to the date. If there's nothing else, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there any discussion? All right, all in favor, please state aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you. Our meeting is adjourned.
Name? Can anyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, it is 5:16. So I'm going to call the Policy and Personnel Committee meeting to order. Michelle, may I have a roll call, please?
Levy,
Here.
Wong, Wong, Jacobs,
Here.
Larson,
Here.
and he'll be serving as ex officio.
Okay, thank you, Michelle.
You're welcome.
May I have approval of the agenda, please?
So moved.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second for the approval of the agenda. Any discussion or questions? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All right, the agenda is approved. May I have approval of the May 26 meeting minutes?
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for the approval of the May 26 minutes. Any questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the May 26 meeting minutes, please say aye.
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 All right, all opposed? Aye, I needed to say aye. Sorry. Got that, Michelle?
Yes.
Thank you. The motion of approval of the minutes passes. That brings us to items for discussion. Letter A, harassment policies, and Kyle has asked for this to be on the agenda. Kyle?
All right. So, unfortunately, I bring forward quite a large task, and I want to provide a little bit of context. So, probably about a year and a half ago, we realized there were some discrepancies in our harassment policies, and they were not very condensed. They were hard to maneuver. So we directed Rob and his team to kind of condense them and streamline them, make sure everything that was in there had to be in there. And so it was last summer, the summer of 19, that we approved the changes. Now, having on our end, having tried to maneuver through those policies, they're still not where we need them to be. And I think my opinion is that they are more difficult to use than they were before we had the changes. So I asked Sue to bring this on, to put this on, because this is something we need to take a look at this summer so that they're ready. Any changes would be ready and approved before school starts. And also an important piece of that is Joanne and Tanya, from an HR standpoint. And recently there were federal changes to the Title IX, which then did dictate changes that need to be updated in policy. So I asked Michelle to put in the public part are all of the current harassment policies, as well as the newsletter from WASB outlining the changes to Title IX and notifying boards that we'd have to look at these policies. In the administrative content, I asked Michelle to put our policies before they, so those are, administrative content contains the policies before the 2019 revision. So those were easy places to put them so we could grab them easily and work with them. So what I'm asking is that the Policy and Personnel Committee, in conjunction with the interim superintendent and HR, come up with a plan to to go through these policies and make recommendations. So in the past, especially with like a big group of policies that are very closely related, they've had like policy workshops before, which are still an open meeting. And workshops are a little bit more difficult in these days. So it's a little bit, it's less formal than a meeting, but it still has to be televised and, you know, broadcast because it is still an open meeting of the Policy and Personnel Committee. But to really sit down with administration from that professional standpoint, and then board members as you know, the roles that we have in monitoring our policies, and make the necessary adjustments, then recommend them, you know, to the full board. So I would like to ask is Sue or Joanne, do you have anything about those policies or anything you want to add?
Kyle, I think it's a good approach that you're considering to have some type of a policy workshop where people can take a good look at what we had before, what the current ones look like, and discuss any concerns that you feel have existed, and then to make those recommendations.
Kyle, what's the time frame that you would like this done?
And Sue or Joanne, you can jump in too. I think it's best to have it done before school starts, because some of the, you know, if you're thinking about, like, okay, so the policies affect all levels of our organization, staff and students as well. So trying to have that ready to as close to the beginning of the school year as possible would be ideal. I know, because I'm not sure about the concern of like when an employee handbook is coming out of and making sure that verbiage and that they line up and match. So so Joanne, I see you on mute. I don't know if you have anything you'd like to add to that.
Yeah, I was just going to say that we are working on the employee handbook and all the final revisions for that, as it has been through so many processes of trying to different HR administrators working on it and things. I would be more than happy, and I know I feel confident speaking for Tanya's behalf as well on this, that we can kind of coordinate with Sue and let Sue kind of navigate where we'd like to get that committee workshop going to have the discussions on this. I have asked for the prior versions and the current versions of these policies so that we can start looking at that and make those recommendations, and of course work through Sue to make sure that we get everybody involved in that process. And I do agree that before the next school year would be the best opportunity to do this.
Joanne, I'm sorry, could you say that last bit again? I missed it.
I said I do agree that we should try to get these policies reviewed and in place before the start of next school year.
Yeah, I agree.
I think there is time to make that happen, because the process for policies is to pass committee. You'd have a workshop or two, and then and you guys as a team can figure out how best that works. Whether you would bring them individually, as you complete them, or if you bring them as a cluster, however best the group decides. But then with having to pass committee for a first reading, then then that's almost like could be a 2-week lag. So we do have time to complete it, but then the other piece is being strategic then about when they're coming to committee, to full board, back to committee, and back to the full board. Because ideally the full board for second reading would be that business meeting, so that fourth Tuesday in August, in order for them to be officially passed for the beginning of the school year.
I recognize that, and I think that we can try to work through these. And as I said, as I can see what they were previously to what they are now, I think we can get a better gauge of what work needs to be done.
Mhm.
And I can, definitely work with Sue through that process and make sure that we've got it on the radar. And, depending on what transpires for the month of July, we'll be on a good path before the end of the month to make sure that we've got this in process so that Tanya and I can continue that work with an incoming interim superintendent or whatever our situation is in July.
Okay, so I'm just for clarification then, Joanne, I'm just a little confused yet. So you're gonna run with it in the meantime to look through it, and then what's, I guess, getting back to Amy's question, then what is the actual timeline? How are we going to make this happen together?
I would like to take a first look at it to see. I don't even understand what changed and what didn't change when this happened last. But I do think that the whole committee will need to look at this. But I want to coordinate those efforts through Sue and make sure that she's on board with what we want to look at. I don't feel I just saw these. The old versions and the new versions on the board docs. So
Okay.
I would like to take the opportunity to look at that before I can tell you if I think this is something that administration can start preparing edits for a first reading and looking at, or if this is something we should have that full workshop. And I would strive to get that done rather quickly so that we know where we can start that plan process.
Okay, thanks, Joanne.
Just for clarity, as a board member, I would definitely think that the board would be involved in the policy rewriting process. And I would like for us to see scheduling 2 workshops, knowing that we may not need the second one at the beginning part of July, so we can have that first read ready for the full board the beginning of August.
Okay.
Okay, any further discussion at this point?
Kyle, I'd like to ask, you had suggested the policy workshop. Are you thinking of like a 4-hour block on a Saturday? Are you looking at an evening? What do you think would work best for the committee members?
There's so much going on. I think that maybe a 4-hour block of time, because there are so many and they are so connected, might be a good approach. I think it is good that because administration are really the experts on like the legal, what they need to contain legally and things like that. So I think it would be a best use of time if if administration looked at the changes they know that they want to make right away, and then how that would line up with the employee handbook, so that you come to the workshop, you're not doing that work all together, if that's possible, and then have that, and then the board is introduced at that layer of that workshop and understanding the policies and understanding the process of the verbiage. That doesn't mean that administration would have to come with like, this is what we want, but coming with their suggestions for edits, so then that workshop is really that work time and collaboration time. I hope that makes sense.
I think that does make sense, that what administration can do is maybe bring the documents, highlight where things were changed, what pieces might be necessary to move to current, and put all those pieces out on the table for the policy and personnel committee members to take a look at it. We'll have that preparation so that you can make your decisions and edits and that sort of thing. But we can at least get it in a good and ready position for you to look at the material, understand the changes, and what some current law might be suggesting.
Yeah, that sounds great from my standpoint.
We'll just get materials ready for people to really dig in and talk about the changes that might be needed.
Perfect.
That pre-work sounds great. I would just request that we get that documentation at least a week before the workshop so we can prepare on our end.
Yeah, that would, with it being a workshop, we should have that time to schedule, and it wouldn't be as cumbersome as like posting a normal meeting, so that shouldn't be a problem. So ideally a first read, so if you are wanting to try to schedule that first workshop today, tonight, and find a time that works, or if you want to direct Michelle to send like a doodle, or even decide who needs to be there at that workshop is a good starting point, I think. So the target for policy says that we have to wait 30 days between a first reading and a second reading, so that at the board level. So that means that the first reading would have to come at the business meeting of July, so the fourth Tuesday of July, and in order for the board to approve the second reading, the business meeting in August. So I don't want to direct the committee, just throwing out suggestions and ideas. So how would you like to proceed in the planning of that workshop?
Amy and Maria, or John's not here, excuse me.
John, yeah, John's on.
John's on. John and Amy, any ideas?
I think it'd be appropriate if we have Michelle send out a doodle, but just looking at July, we're going to do a Saturday workshop. The first Saturday is July 4th, so that would be out. Either the 11th or the 18th, I think would still give us time. And if we needed a second workshop, we would have that space. So really it's, if Sue, you and your team, if you think you could have like the pre-work to us by the 4th, so if we met on the 11th, we would be ready.
Amy, I'm going to have to interject. I actually have a celebration of life scheduled on that day. Could everyone do the 18th instead?
Yeah, I'm fine with the 18th.
Mm-hmm. And then my other question would be, Sue, from your point, who would Michelle need to make sure she includes on that doodle? Who from administration needs to be part of that workshop?
I think Joanne and Tanya want your input if you want, to be a part of that and same with Monica from the cabinet representation. But then I think the policy personnel committee members and then the oncoming superintendent.
Okay.
Well, I think it sounds like then we've got a plan. If I'm understanding this correctly, Joanne, this is going to give you time then that you need to look through the past and the new, correct? And and then Amy, you're requesting we get the materials a week before we meet, correct? So could we go ahead, everybody, and set up July 18th? Would that give all parties involved enough time?
Could we also block off the 25th? We probably won't need it, but I'd rather have it and canceled than need it in everyone's book.
I like that idea. What about everybody else? John?
I'll be up north, so hopefully I have connection up there.
Okay.
And just for clarity, if we do want, the 18th works for me personally, but the 25th, just to be cognizant of the deadlines for posting, for the board agenda and things, those are due to Michelle on my end on Wednesday, the 22nd, so that she can post by 5 on the 24th. If we don't meet till the 25th, I do worry a little bit about being able to get those edits and out for public view for the first reading for the meeting on the 28th.
Yeah, that's a good point, Joanne.
So I think the 18th is a good day, and if we do think that we need a second, we might need to maybe look at a shorter meeting time, maybe one evening, to do that during that week because we're going to be on that timeline. That's just my thought. I'm sorry.
Could I suggest maybe leaving one of your policy and personnel committee meetings in July? Would you have one? No, the first one would be prior to that. Because I was thinking if you left one of the meetings open, you could, have some time at a meeting if that was the only agenda item. But I don't think that's going to work.
Yeah,
Could we lengthen the time on the 18th that we're available, or include a follow-up if needed on Monday the 20th?
that sounds good to me. Everybody else?
Is there a preference for one over the other?
Amy, when you're asking for preference, are you thinking of a committee? I guess I'm not clear what you mean, Amy.
So it would be the Policy and Personnel Committee, and then the superintendent and her cabinet members who have done the pre-work and would be kind of guiding us through.
Mhm.
I could see the benefit either way. We may want to look at it on the 18th and then step away and come back on the 20th. We may just want to take a little bit of extra time on the 18th and just get it all nailed down. So I am flexible either way. Are there other preferences?
Anyone?
The 20th doesn't work for me.
Okay. Well,
Only speaking for myself, I don't want to speak for the whole cabinet, but I can work with either of those options, but the 20th is obviously not an option for John.
okay. John, would you be okay with that if we did that?
Yeah, I'm fine. I mean, I'm going to be traveling all day that day, so there's just no
No,
possibility.
yeah, no, I get it. I certainly understand. As long as you're all right with that, John, I don't want to overstep.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I want to be involved and have a say, but
Well, right, exactly. Kyle, on that Tuesday, is there any time that we could, instead of Monday, we could meet on? Could we do a special board meet? How would that work for Tuesday, the 21st?
Oh, you guys could absolutely do a meeting on the 21st if you want to.
You mean the 22nd?
Tuesday the 21st, everything needs to be turned in by the 22nd.
Oh, that's right.
Well, if you approve them, Michelle would probably be the person who would have the copies anyway, and so she would have everything to upload to board docs. If that's if that's something you're interested in.
Well, it would be tight, but I think that's doable. What does everyone think? Then we have John's involvement as well. And then for the cabinet, that's not an extra night for them because they're already on.
Well, I mean, it is because they're staying late. Because we usually don't have board meetings on the third Tuesday.
Oh, that's right. It's the third Tuesday.
Honestly, I think it is like what Amy's saying. I think it's good to plan ahead. But if administration is already coming with suggested recommendations, and some of that back work is done ahead of time, and you have like prior policies to go off, it's not like you're writing them from scratch. I think you would be able to get most of the work done, if not all, in 4 hours. But I think it is smart to plan. The other option would be it's not done often, but if more work is being done, like they could go to policy and personnel for a first reading on that same Tuesday of the, like on the 28th of July, and then go to the full board for a first reading, and then they could go back to policy and personnel the second week of August for a second reading, and then come back to the full board, and that fourth Tuesday. So I mean, but yeah. Maybe that doodle would be exploring other options or other availability. Like if you can all pretty much think the 18th is going to work, and then maybe, and if you're just trying to find a time on the 18th that works best for everybody, and then if Michelle were to say, okay, here are some alternate dates, which one would work best for people, then maybe, that's the information she gathers on that second part.
All right, so thoughts, people? Please.
I would be fine with the 18th and then the 28th if we need it, and then send it, assuming everything goes well, which I don't have a reason to believe it wouldn't, send it to the full board that same night.
I'm comfortable with that. John?
I just want to be clear on the dates here because I'm confused and I came in late on this because I was at the alcohol and beverage meeting. So, well, yeah. How many more meetings can I fit into a night? Are you talking about July or June?
July. So
Okay.
it would be, yep, July 18th for a Saturday workshop. And then we may not need a second date, but if we do, we would review it on Tuesday, July 28th.
Okay.
And then pass it on to the full board that same night.
That's fine. I was thinking it was in June. I'm confused. I'm sorry. I apologize for that. So no, actually the 18th of July works for me. So I'm looking at that. So now that I'm clear on the dates and everything.
Joanne, how do you feel about all that?
Sorry, I was trying to find my unmute.
That's okay.
Yeah. John, I guess I would just have that question then on July 20th. Are you available if you were looking at June, and so that we wouldn't have to do that if we needed to set a date?
Yeah, if we're looking at July, that's fine. Yeah. Yeah, I'm just have a week off coming up here. So the 20th would work. Yeah.
Okay. I don't know how everybody feels about that. I know you have made preference that you don't like to send things the same night from policy right to board.
Yeah.
So if he is available on that 20th, I think everybody was kind of on board with that. I don't want to make decisions, without input, and this is your decision. I will work with whatever we need to do. I'm going to ask Tanya real quick if she's available. I keep speaking for myself. I want to make sure she's available to work on this as well.
And Joanne,
Hi. Yeah, I'll make myself available and that works fine.
and Joanna and Tanya, can I just say that it's a pleasure to work with you?
Oh, thank you.
What time would that meeting be?
But I guess I'm going back to ask you as the committee, and do you want to stay with that 18th and then the 28th straight to the board, or do you want to have that 20th in case you need it? Or I think that I can speak that we will try to make this committee work so that we can get everything to the board in the timeframes that are necessary without having to waive policy. We don't want to be in those situations where we're trying to get around, I shouldn't say get around, but not have that 30-day notice and not giving people ample time to look through these things.
I think the 18th and the 20th would be great. And if we could send out a doodle just to confirm availability, that would be helpful.
Why don't we go ahead, if everybody's in agreement, and do what Amy suggested then? Is everyone all right with that?
Sounds good to me.
Okay. All right. Well, then let's go that route. And Michelle, if you could get that doodle put out for the 18th and 20th, that would be great. Kyle, was there anything else?
No, I'm so excited. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Yes. All right. Thank you. All right. Now we are at policies for first reading. And we have policy 3 for 5.64 posthumous diplomas. Do I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a first and a second. Any discussion or questions? All right, hearing none. All in favor of approving policy 345.64, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Aye.
Pardon?
I said aye.
Oh, I thought it was an A. Okay, great. So policy, then the motion carries. Policy 345.64, posthumous diplomas, passes for a first reading and will go to the full board next month. Now we're on personnel items. And that brings us to the personnel recommendations. Does anyone have any questions that would require us to go into closed session at this time for the June 9th, 2020 employment recommendations? Exhibit A, section 19.85, parent 1, parent C.
I'm good with it.
In staying in open?
No, yeah, I'm fine.
Okay. All right. So,
Stephanie, may I'd like to make a motion to approve the personnel recs as presented.
okay. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. All in favor of approving the June 9th, 2020 employment recommendations, section 19.85, parent 1, parent C, please say aye.
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 All opposed? Okay, no one, and the motion carries. That brings us to letter C, organizational structure. I do, and I apologize that I just noticed this section 19.85, parent 1, parent C. Kyle, perhaps you can help me since I'm still pretty new to the board. Could you explain why that is the same section as the employment recommendations?
It's because so the way the agenda is built is that if we always include personnel recs in closed session so that we always have the ability to go into closed session to discuss them if necessary. But any action on the personnel rec should always be taken in open session.
No, and I understand that.
Yeah.
That's why, though, it's the same section. And
So you handled it the way you should have. We passed that one, but now we will have to go into closed session for that one. So it's the same exemption because it's the topics are covered by that same part of the statute.
Okay, thank you for explaining that. And hopefully someone in the public was wondering that as well. Do I have a motion to go into closed session?
I move to convene the Policy and Personnel Committee into closed session pursuant to section 19.85, parent 1, parent C of the Wisconsin state statutes relative to considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of all public employees over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. So I have a motion and a second to go into closed session. All in favor, say aye, please.
Is it a roll call vote?
I thought we don't go that. Oh, we just go straight to the roll call.
Yep, going into closed session always requires a roll call vote.
Well, I knew that, but I guess I was thinking, okay, sorry. I thought.
No, it's okay.
Okay. So Michelle, could we have a roll call, please?
Yes. Wong,
Aye.
Levy,
Aye.
Jacobs,
Aye.
Larson.
Aye.
Motion carried.
All right. So now just for the public so that you all know, and we will be going into closed session. We will come back after closed session for adjournment into open session. And we will all be hanging up now on this call and go back into the closed session invite that Michelle gave. So if you all can hang up and go to the other, that would be awesome. Thank you.
Okay. So we have Maria, we have Amy, here comes Spencer. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Mr. President,
Yes.
she'll still have to adjourn too.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Do you need a motion for that, or should we?
No, we are still waiting for Stephanie to get on.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's right.
Oh my God. Oh, here she is.
Now I have to unmute. All right.
Yeah.
Sorry, everyone. Okay. So we're now back in open session. Are there any items for future agendas? Okay, hearing none. Our next meeting date will be June 23rd, the time to be announced. We're now at adjournment. Do I have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor of adjournment, please say aye.
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 Aye. Okay, our meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Okay.